Donc, bonjour, je suis très content de vous présenter mon projet de recherche. C'est ma première conférence. Et donc, le titre de mon projet de recherche, c'est la salubrité des légumes, lien entre les contaminants retrouvés dans les légumes et sa perception par les consommateurs urbains à Da Nang, Hoi An, au Vietnam. Et justement, au Vietnam, la modernisation agraire, l'urbanisation et la gouvernance inadéquate du contrôle alimentaire exacerbent les risques sanitaires liés aux légumes, notamment par les contaminants microbiens et métalliques. Bien que documenté depuis 2 décennies, le lien entre la perception des consommateurs et la contamination réelle reste peu exploré. C'est pourquoi notre projet de recherche vise à combler cette lacune en étudiant ces liens à Da Nang et Hoi An au Vietnam, 2 villes au centre du Vietnam ayant des systèmes de vente contrastés comme on peut le voir dans ces 2 cas. Nous nous sommes donc demandé ces questions de recherche. À quel degré la perception des consommateurs concernant la salubrité des légumes reflète un niveau de contamination réel? Eh bien, pour répondre à ces questions de recherche, nous avons mobilisé une méthodologie multiméthode à 3 étapes. Commençons donc par la première, qui a été la collecte de 397 échantillons de légumes, dont la coriandre, la laitue, la moutarde brune et l'herbe du tigre. Nous avons fait la collecte des échantillons à travers différents points de vente, suivant un gradient de modernisation, donc passant des supermarchés, magasins certifiés, aux marchés traditionnels et aux marchés de rue. Par la suite, des tests de laboratoire ont été faits sur ces échantillons de légumes. Nous avons analysé un total de 5 contaminants, dont 2 micro-organismes, le colis et la salmonella, et 3 métaux lourds, le zinc, le plomb et le cadmium. Pour finir, nous avons distribué un total de 208 questionnaires aux consommateurs des mêmes points de vente qu'à l'étape A, en utilisant un échantillonnage par quota. Les questionnaires portaient notamment sur le niveau de confiance, d'anxiété et de prise de risque. Suite à l'analyse de toutes ces données, voici donc les résultats préliminaires que nous avons obtenus. Commençons donc par les 2 premiers graphiques ici, qui représentent le fait que le type de marché influence la teneur en contaminants, dont le colis et le cadmium présents au sein des légumes. Et qu'est-ce qu'on remarque ici, c'est que comparativement aux autres marchés, les marchés traditionnels se distinguent par des teneurs en E. coli et en cadmium nettement supérieures. Qu'en est-il de la perception? Eh bien, regardons le graphique sur les scores totaux de perception négative par marché, c'est-à-dire que plus le score global de perception négative est élevé, plus la méfiance, l'anxiété et la prise de risque perçue s'accroissent. Et qu'est-ce qu'on remarque ici, c'est que ce sont les marchés traditionnels encore et les marchés de rue qui affichent les niveaux les plus élevés, d'où la corroboration observée entre les teneurs élevées en E. coli et en cadmium dans les légumes des marchés traditionnels et la méfiance des consommateurs envers ces marchés traditionnels. Par la suite, selon les données, il y a aussi un certain dilemme entre la confiance, l'anxiété et la prise de risque présent dans tous les marchés liés à des achats contraints, c'est-à-dire une absence d'alternative, et au manque d'informations sur la qualité des légumes. Il y a aussi une tendance générale observée où les districts ruraux expriment des niveaux systématiquement plus élevés d'anxiété, de prise de risque et de confiance que les districts urbains. Il y a aussi une influence de la profession où les cols bleus, que ce soit dans les marchés de rue ou les marchés traditionnels, leur niveau de prise de confiance, de prise de risque et d'anxiété est très faible et voire minimal dans les supermarchés. Par la suite, allons voir les 2 derniers graphiques. Commençons donc par celui de gauche qui montre que la provenance des légumes influence les niveaux de contaminants. On parle encore de l'E. coli et du cadmium, avec une contamination plus élevée ailleurs, suivie de Hoi An puis de Da Nang. Pour ce qui est du graphique de droite, la taille de la ville va aussi influencer la teneur en cadmium, mais en cadmium seulement, comme en témoignent les cas de Da Nang, une ville de taille moyenne, et Hoi An, une petite ville. Qu'en est-il de la perception sur la teneur en contaminants? Eh bien, dans les marchés traditionnels, les personnes âgées entre 45 et 64 ans perçoivent une teneur plus faible que les jeunes entre 18 et 24 ans. Selon la profession, les cols blancs estiment la contamination bien inférieure à celle perçue par les étudiants, tandis que les femmes au foyer la jugent nettement plus élevée. Pour ce qui est des magasins certifiés, eh bien, les résidents des zones rurales perçoivent une teneur en contaminants plus élevée que les urbains. Merci. Et donc, en conclusion, le lien entre la présence des contaminants retrouvés dans les légumes et l'anxiété alimentaire est en quelque sorte confirmé, particulièrement dans les marchés traditionnels. Les facteurs clés de perception sont l'âge, la profession et le lieu de résidence. Ainsi, pour finir, les politiques publiques devraient alors cibler l'insalubrité alimentaire, mais sans marginaliser les vendeurs des marchés traditionnels. Voilà. Merci.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel, and today I will be presenting insights from my doctoral research on responsible food practices and equity challenges in Ecuador. And before I do that, I'd like to acknowledge that I carried this work as a Canadian, as a student based in Canada. And this is made possible because of collaboration and trust of many colleagues and communities and participants in Ecuador. So I am sharing these insights today with humility and deep appreciation for this collaboration. So I'd like us to start by picturing two people shopping for food in Ecuador in the same city. One that makes time to stop at an agroecological fair, looking for vegetables they can't find elsewhere, and asking the producers if they could grow the grains that their grandparents used to cook. And the other stops by a corner store on their way home, picking up a fresh and packaged foods, even though they are aware of red labels on some of them. So these two, both of them were navigating the same food policies, most of which we've discussed throughout this conference. But as we can presume, they're not doing so under the same conditions. And we can presume that their decisions are shaped by what they can access and maybe the meanings they give to foods, how practical they feel the foods are to them. And these everyday decisions matter a lot because in Ecuador, there is health problems like, for example, 1 out of 4 adults is affected by obesity, and ultra-processed food are considered a growing major problem in chronic diseases. So we've talked about some of these levers that Ecuador acts upon to promote healthier diets and transition towards more sustainable food systems. Some of which, one of which is the traffic light nutrition labels, traditional food promotion, and support for local markets, including agroecological fairs. And under a consumer perspective, these strategies are considered reflective of key dimensions of responsible consumption. And in the literature, we could see some studies that suggest that these strategies, when used by consumers, were associated with healthier diets, but evidence remained mixed and specific to some settings and some groups. So in our study, we were interested in knowing more who engages in responsible consumption and why. So we did that with a cross-sectional study with a questionnaire, anthropometric measurements, and ethnographies in 3 cities in Ecuador with over 4,000 participants. And some key insights. So we could document clear differences in how people engage with these strategies. For example, as for nutrition label use, and in particular with ultra-processed food intake, we indeed could see that label use in Quito was associated with less frequent UPF intake, but in Riobamba, those that were unaware of the labels were the ones who had less frequently ultra-processed foods. And this is logical, and we also could see that this group of those who were less aware of the label were more likely to be in rural areas, older and less educated. But strikingly, we could also see that this group had a regular consumption of ultra-processed food alongside low fruit and vegetable intake. And quickly, for traditional foods and for agroecological fair users, the results were more or less the same. So they were also associated with with indicators of healthier diets, but were more frequent behaviors for people who had more education and higher income. So I'm sorry for going quickly, but overall, this study adds contextual insight to evidence that food empowerment policies often benefit those that already can act on them, already best positioned to use them. And yeah, we are aware of many limitations of the study, and I think they warrant that we go further on some of the variables that we have. For example, using more refined dietary data, and also using mixed methods research. And it reminds us that we need to reflect more on how can policies meet people where they are, but build trust and support diverse foods relationship. So thank you for your attention.
Good day, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Izevbizua, and I'll be talking on incorporating the One Health framework into human health risk assessment, a dynamic approach to environmental management. So generally, our world is faced with complex environmental problems, such as chemical mixtures, multiple stressors, climate change, with multiple pathways of exposure. Until now, we do not understand the risk and the effects of these exposures and the interactions on human health. Also, the health domains have been studied independently, and most of the assessments are not directly relevant to the affected population. So the aim of this research is to develop a holistic framework for human health risk assessment, incorporating the One Health approach to help us look at the interactions between humans, animals, and environmental health, consider the multiple pathways of exposure, incorporate more sources of knowledge, most importantly, traditional knowledge, and create a system-based approach to human health risk assessment. How are we going to achieve this? We'll start by doing a scoping review to gather what's in the literature on One Health framework and the approaches that have been used. We are going to be assessing 3 databases: PubMed, Scopus, Web of Science, and Braille literature to come up with the One Health framework, the approaches, and also the risk assessment frameworks that have been adopted. After that, we'll identify elements that will make up the framework for an integrated, holistic approach for human health risk assessment. This framework will be subjected to expert review in government, academia, and industry. We'll get their feedback and come up with a final document which we will test using existing data from Alberta Oil Sands region. So far, in our literature review, we've been able to identify the One Health framework. The concept of the framework is to show the interdependence and the interconnections, the connectedness between the different health domains, emphasize collaboration for us to understand the interactions, and examine health from the integration of human, animal, and environmental health. So one key approach that has been documented in using the One Health framework is the system approach. The system approach helps you see the problem as a whole entity made up of different components that are related with each other, taking into account different perspectives of the problem. So to help you define the system, it's important for you to identify the aim of the system. What problems are we looking at? What questions do we want to answer? Who are the stakeholders? Who are the people influencing the system, influenced by the system, affected by the system, or affecting the system? What is the spatiotemporal dimension of this system? And how does it change over space and time? What are the restrictions that this system has placed on the lifestyle of the affected people, their culture, their food, their feeding habits, their health? And what are the consequences of the interactions of the different domains in the system? The next steps is to identify the risk assessment frameworks, the benefits and the limitations of all the frameworks, develop an integrated system, show the benefits and the limitations, and identify key points among the elements that we can integrate artificial intelligence, and then we'll go ahead and validate the framework. In conclusion, I would like to say that this work is very relevant, especially in the context of this conference, because it shows the effect of environmental pollution on food, the culture, the land, and the health. With this approach, we'll be able to look at the holistic problem, what is the current situation of the problem with respect to environmental pollution, incorporate traditional knowledge, and make it more relevant to the affected users. Thank you. thank you for this opportunity, and I want to thank my supervisors.
I'm working with Vivian Valencia. It's really nice to be here. I'm finally been able to share with everyone the preliminary results of this paper we are working on called Trusting the Land, Alternative Land Arrangements for Agroecological Stewardship. So I have to say that I'm a Mexican daughter of a second generation farmer. Coming here to study Quebec's food system. So I just wanted to recognize that I am also doing from a very humble position, and I'm very happy to learn about the things that are happening here. Okay, so urban expansion, land grabbing, farmland consolidation, agro-industrialization, and speculative investment have created, in general, a global land squeeze, as was highlighted in last year's IPES food report. This land squeeze is a major structural barrier to sustainable and just food systems. Food systems that include everyone, both people and nature, and this has led also to increased rural poverty, food insecurity, and growing land inequality, which disproportionately impacts small-scale and especially agroecological farmers. Therefore, in the project I am participating with Vivian, we asked ourselves, how can we address land inequality and land squeeze, but also foster agroecology here in Quebec? So after an horizon scanning to understand Quebec food system, which is the province of Canada in which more organic operations happen, and doing a series of interviews with farmers, experts, agriculture consultants in the region, and 2 workshops with these small-scale farmers and experts, we found that in Quebec we already have 2 very innovative and promising strategies. One is called Lien. This is a pairing mechanism service between aspiring farmers and land-owning established farmers without successors. And the other one is Social Agricultural Land Trust, or Fiducie d'Utilité Sociale Agricole, or FUSAS, as Isabel already mentioned in the last panel. And therefore, we focused more in FUSAS because they protect in perpetuity the farmland. As Isabel already mentioned, they do so because they are legal tools that secure farmland, taken out from the speculative market and putting into these very special legal mechanisms. And once the land is transferred to a FUSA, it solely belongs to its designation. It belongs to no one else. Furthermore, these mechanisms help aspiring farmers to have access to land through alternative land tenure or land governance models. So these alternative tenure models, such as easements, amphitheosis, and superficial property, are especially promising when combined with this social agricultural land trust. Easements, for example, allow a limited use of the land, but provide access at a cheaper price to aspiring farmers, while amphitheosis grant long-term usage rights in exchange for land improvement. And this is also taken into account when the economical arrangements are made between the aspiring farmers and the people that manages the FUSAs. Therefore, these models differ in the rights they offer, but share these key advantages. They are generally more affordable than, of course, purchasing the land or renting the land, and they reduce the upfront cost or investment required to start a farm, and offer longer terms than standard leases, allowing farmers time to recoup their investments. I'm going to rush. in Quebec, the first social agricultural land trust was the firm Cadet Roussel, established in 2010. And but I have to say that the number is rapidly growing. And something very important to retain from FUSAS is at its heart, it's the designation. And this is vital because it's what establishes their purpose and often aligns, or most of the time aligns, with agroecological values. For example, a designation might state that the land must be used for organic farming and serve both current and future generations of farmers, reflecting both social and ecological goals that are consistent with agroecology. Because easements and amphitheoses rely on mutual trust as well and encourage seeing land more as a partner than a commodity or a resource, this type of alternative arrangements of land tenure can provide an opportunity to rethink our relationships with land and challenge the dominant paradigms we have nowadays. So what are going to be our next steps and what are the challenges associated to these mechanisms? We are going to build evidence to strengthen FUSAS by assessing to what extent these mechanisms advance agroecology, helping to build a case to push forward for this mechanism. And so far, the main challenges we have identified are securing funding to acquire the land and put it into FUSAS or land trust, and also the lack of a supportive regulatory environment to scale them and even ensure their viability. So to address these issues, my colleague Laura Howard will explore blended financing opportunities for FUSAS, while I will be applying policy coherence for sustainable development to identify policy gaps and interactions, both conflictive incoherences and supportive coherences, to document how can we improve in this regard the system. And nevertheless, we can all do this. And since agriculture operates within a commodity-based system, our broader goal is really to support this transition that we really need, and I think we all agree, towards food systems that recognize food as a human right and a social good, and paving the way for new paradigms, not only economic, but also development paradigms. So that's all, and I want to thank everyone for your time. Also, special thanks to the farmers and our community partners and our fellow colleagues at the university.